With the launch of Baldurs Gate 3 upon us, I think we've all had more than enough time to digest what we think of this upcoming RPG. For some people, it looks like the perfect next step forward for Larian. It's bigger, it's grander, it's got plenty of potential. But for some other people, it just doesn't really look like a Baldurs Gate video game, and those people are quite skeptical. So the question is, have Larian convinced doubters that this is the true sequel to the Baldurs Gate video game series? Let's jump in. Hi, Estelden here. If you're into great CRPGs like the ones Larian's given us, you love Baldurs Gate, and like me, you consider a title like Fallout 4 to be a complete insult to all of those, please consider subscribing to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. When Baldurs Gate 3 was first revealed to me, I'll admit I was a little bit concerned by what I saw. It very much looked like they were just going to make another Divinity game with the Baldurs Gate title slapped over the top. I just didn't get the impression that Larian were working on their dream series, as it seemed more like they were just happy with their formula and were just making a D&D game because Wizards of the Coast had offered them more money. That's not me criticising Larian either. I love the Divinity series. For me, it actually reignited my love of old school RPGs that seemed pretty much dead and buried, at least since Dragon Age Origins came out. So my mind certainly wasn't made up. I was certainly willing to keep an open mind about Baldurs Gate 3, and I'm really glad I did, as I do feel a lot more optimistic compared to how I felt during the initial reveal. We now know, or at least I know now, that Larian had been begging to work on this series for quite some time, so I feel it isn't right to assume that they don't give a shit about the BioWare games, and simply want to do their own thing. I don't think that's really the case. I genuinely now feel that they connect quite deeply with the Baldurs Gate video game series, and it's very much more about them just wanting to work on any old D&D game. The biggest challenge for Larian though is that there's a lot of people who are naturally quite skeptical of what they're going to bring to the series, and for them to really succeed, they need to win over not just fans of their own Divinity titles, but also the crowd who've never really gotten into those, but they love Baldurs Gate. And there's plenty of those people out there, given Baldurs Gate is still a massive draw even today. I do believe that the main concerns people have when it comes to Larian is their ability to craft a serious quality story, create wonderful, memorable characters that offer more than just comedic value, and also cities, and making something that's truly as memorable as Baldurs Gate from the first game, and Athkatla in Baldurs Gate 2. So the question now is whether Larian have convinced those skeptics that they're capable of pulling it all off, and not just making a game that's got quality combat, sure, but it's missing the mark with some of the other aspects. I think most people following this game, they kind of fall into three camps. You've got the people who are already huge Larian fans, they might have dabbled a bit in Baldurs Gate, but it's not their absolute favourite. I believe those people are completely fine with the direction this game's going, they're just excited for the next turn-based Larian game, and whether it was Baldurs Gate 3 or it was something else, they were probably going to be pretty happy. You then have the die-hard Baldurs Gate fans who've never really been sold on Larian's storytelling chops, and they see Divinity as just nowhere near as good. I think they're the most vocal people who've had negative feelings about this, and I think they've got valid concerns. Finally though, you've got the people who love both series for different reasons, but they've probably got mixed feelings as to if Larian are actually going to pull it off and make a genuine Baldurs Gate 3 that's worthy of the name. I think that last part is important. I think most people agree that they can make a competent D&D adventure, absolutely, but can they make the Baldurs Gate 3? I'll say that I'm probably in that last camp that I mentioned because I'm a little bit more neutral on the fact that Larian's making this. It's not the end of the world to me that Real Time with Pause isn't back. It's not really going to affect my decision in buying the game. The same can be said about the fact that this is a prequel and it's not really a true sequel to the Baal storyline. I really don't care that much. Why? Because, I moved on. I never thought we'd get another Baldurs Gate game like this, and if I look at the positives, I can tell you that if Wizards of the Coast had decided to outsource Baldurs Gate in, say, 2012, 2013, we would have gotten something similar to an action game, probably something along the lines of Kingdoms of Amalur, so in that regard I consider us fortunate in that we probably dodged a bullet. Whatever Larian is doing, and whether you like it or not, it can't possibly be worse than what 99% of developers would have done to it. I can really only think of maybe Owlcat, creators of Pathfinder Kingmaker, who would possibly do a more faithful Baldurs Gate game in 2020. Baldurs Gate 3 still has very big shoes to fill though. This isn't just a typical RPG series we're talking about here. When I see discussions about what is the face of the CRPG, or even a question I saw once about how Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger are the staple of JRPGs, and this person asked, what's the Western equivalent? A ton of people will always answer with Baldurs Gate, loads of people. So it makes complete sense that Larian are under far more scrutiny than they've ever been before. Divinity Original Sin 1 was heavily praised by many people because no one really had any expectations. For all we knew, it could have been terrible, but we came out of it saying, hey, that was a pretty good combat experience, that was really cool. Baldurs Gate 3 won't be like that. People are going to be really honing in on not just the combat, but everything. The story, the characters, the decision making, the crafting of the city, Baldur's Gate. There's going to be a lot of expectation here, and people have the originals to refer back to. In particular, Baldur's Gate 2, which many people, myself included, consider to be an absolute masterpiece. It has absolutely everything anyone could want in a CRPG, in my opinion. And it truly feels like an epic tale from start to finish. And on that note, what I will say is I don't really think that either Divinity Original Sin game did quite feel like an absolute epic from beginning to end. What I found with both Divinity games is the first halves of the games felt really great, there were some decent quests, awesome things going on in the initial areas, but the game starts to get a bit rougher and the content feels a lot scarcer as it all goes on. And I do know that Original Sin 2 had a lot of work done on it after launch to fix some of that up. I know they fixed up like the third act somewhat, but that won't cut it with an IP like Baldur's Gate. The old school fans will absolutely hammer Larian if they release something they consider to be inferior to the originals. It does need to feel like a complete, well-structured story from start to finish, and what I'd ask Larian to do is to use early access a little bit differently, and rather than just use it to perfect and polish the first 20 hours, use it to make sure that the last 20 hours or so feel absolutely brilliant. And I know that some people, including the devs, will say that spoilers will be too big of an issue if you do something like that, but to me I think people will be happy to cop the spoilers on the chin if it means ensuring the game has an incredibly smooth flow. And let's remember that this is a prequel, so I don't think that spoilers would do anywhere near as much damage compared to if this was an actual sequel to the second game. On the other side though, I certainly hope that Wizards of the Coast allow Larian that extra time to ensure this game is an absolute classic, the best it can be. I really hope they don't rush this out early just so they can promote D&D. They've sat on this for a long time, so I hope that means they'll ensure the wait has been worth it for everyone. In terms of what Larian has lacked previously, when we look at their lack of story focus, that epic feel in the past as I mentioned, once again that is in comparison to Baldur's Gate. I know some may feel that Divinity did feel epic to them. That is completely fine. I'm talking about compared to what some consider to be one of the best RPGs ever. And they're making the sequel to those, so I'm speaking in that context. And what I will say is that there are some encouraging signs that Larian are getting better in those aspects. To me, more recent footage does give me much more confidence that this is a much bigger title than previous games, and not just like a modified Divinity title. As far as Larian's recent showings off go, this looks like the biggest budget RPG in this style since Dragon Age Origins. To make that clear, I'm not talking about single character RPGs like The Witcher 3, I'm not including those in that, I'm talking purely party based. It's comfortably a much bigger affair than something like Pillars of Eternity, any of the other recent CRPG love letters that are out there, and if you look into Larian, they've absolutely massively upgraded their team. In fact, it's one of the reasons early access is a bit more expensive than those Divinity titles. The game's got a massive budget compared to what they've done in the past, and given what will be a 4+ year dev cycle most likely, a lot of money is absolutely going into this thing. To address the other side of that argument though, many detractors of the game do feel it is essentially just Divinity style isometric with a few cutscenes thrown in. I personally don't consider the isometric style, that's clearly still there, don't get me wrong, but I don't consider it to really be a bad thing. Fully third person with a ton of companions I feel would just get tedious, just because I think it leads to a lot more technical issues, it's harder to locate people, etc. So even if they've been able to carry over some of the Divinity Code of Paint, which might be seen as lazy to some, I'm really not that bothered by it. To me it's the content, the city and the story that are going to be the real test. While I enjoyed the original's Baldur's Gate's big city, for me Athkatla in Baldur's Gate 2 is one of the gold standards in an RPG. It's probably in my top 5 ever, and that's because there is just so much love. It is incredible to explore the different districts. They've got those distinct tones. It's not just a typical sword and sorcery style romp, because it's full of mysterious arcane technology such as the planisphere, which is this huge structure in the middle of town that will throw you off guard a bit if you're new to the game. And that is on top of all the fleshed out areas of the city, which include a thieves guild, you got the nobles, and so many different quests. So I really fanboyed there, but what I want to say is, do Larian have what it takes to match or even better that city? That's something I'm still pretty skeptical about. I think Larian have come up with competent towns before, but I think even if you love the look of Baldur's Gate 3, I think you would have to be reaching a little to say anything from Divinity 1 or 2 match that city. Could it be as good as the actual Baldur's Gate from 1? Maybe. I think that'll still be a really hard city to beat, but if Larian put absolutely everything into one single town, being Baldur's Gate in 3, they may pull it off. But if they're going to win fans over, it needs to be impressive, and you would hope that when Larian and Wizards of the Coast discuss them working on it, crafting the Baldur's Gate city was a big talking point. Now, the story itself, we know it's a prequel, so it won't have the pressure of trying to continue the Bale story, which for me really felt concluded and perfectly fine. One of the main arguments surrounding why this title isn't a true Baldur's Gate successor is that it's not continuing that storyline, and while I think that is sound reasoning, I do think if they had have gone down that road, we would have absolutely been left with disappointment. If I think of all the films and TV shows that have tried to resurrect an old finished tale and try and carry it all on forward, it usually results in either butchering it or just treading the same old ground for pretty much no reason. I'll remain optimistic at the fact that this will mostly feel new. I'm sure they'll include some elements that tie back to the original pretty much as fan service, but I imagine this will be a game designed around people being able to play it as their first Baldur's Gate without really feeling lost. Is that a good thing? Well, we really won't know until we see the quality of the story, and if part of the reason they were allowed to make this game is because they had something special up their sleeve and they presented it to Wizards of the Coast. In remaining objective though, I think it's very important to never go too overboard in praising a developer. We're seeing it now in the console space with plenty of people singing Sony's praises, despite their anti-consumer practices being pretty clear for anyone to see. It's very common now for people to latch onto a developer and eat up everything they say, when sometimes we do need to take a step back and simply accept that they're just a business trying to grow, they're not our friend. In Larian's case of Baldur's Gate 3, they're making a massive, big-budget RPG, and that will unfortunately come with compromises for people who, like myself, enjoy a far more old-school style of gaming with no quest markers, interesting mechanics, as well as keeping the dumbing down to a minimum. I do think Larian and Wizards of the Coast will probably ensure the game appeals to the masses in some ways. Certainly more so than the original Baldur's Gates, which would probably confuse most modern gamers who are used to the pick up and play mentality, and reading a manual or reading anything at all is probably foreign to them. My overall thoughts and what traditional Baldur's Gate fans can expect is we will get a good RPG here. Larian are going all out. This is not a lazy Divinity reskin, it will be a decently high quality D&D affair with great combat, probably some great quests and areas to explore, but when it comes to it being Baldur's Gate 3, I don't think it will quite hit that mark. I could see it being better than Dragon Age Origins, and for many people that would be high praise and a big success, but probably not quite the level of Baldur's Gate 2, at least in my opinion. You never know though, maybe this will be their Baldur's Gate 1, which is a great game, it feels like they're finding their feet a little bit, and then their next game, that will be even better and they might learn from all their potential mistakes. So we've got less than 2 weeks to go, early access, let's see what happens. A bit off topic now, but I want to say finally I did make another Baldur's Gate video last week, and it is one of the reasons I wanted to make this video today as well. That video I mentioned, it's more about the Twitch integration side, and I want to clarify that wasn't meant to come across as me being absolutely critical of Larian or even the game. Just that I worry about what a publisher like EA or Activision might do and what they could do to like a future Dragon Age or a Mass Effect. I recognise that attaching that discussion to Baldur's Gate 3 means some people will take it as me blaming Larian. And I'm not saying it's their fault for doing that, I'm saying that it sort of comes down to how I presented the video and how I put it up. Because, I mean, I am actually quite new to videos, titles, and thumbnails. If you look at my history, the majority have really only been in the last couple of months, so I am still learning, and if you didn't like that video, hopefully you enjoyed this one a bit more, since I think it's a more relatable discussion. A quick channel update as well, I will be getting some art done for it quite soon. There's already someone doing it, it will hopefully be done today or tomorrow, so if you see it go up, it went well. If not, it means it didn't turn out too great, so we'll see how we go. And from there, it'll just be continuing to try and get better and improve, and hopefully make some great videos for you guys who love RPGs and you're a bit sick of the direction of the AAA industry. I want to say as well that I really appreciate all of the support over the last couple of months. That's when I've really been doing the videos properly. It's been really fun chatting to some of you guys, seeing your takes, and I read all the comments and I find it all really awesome to see all of these old school gamers jumping on and listening and giving their takes on everything. I think it's really cool. And if you're new, hopefully you'll stick around for the next one. So if you enjoyed the video, please comment, like, and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks very much, and bye-bye.